All right. So there's a copy of the handout in the chat. If you don't, you could just sort of follow along. This is a session that I do on a somewhat regular basis. It's designed for both new agents who are putting together their plan, as well as, what do we call an agent who isn't new? Used? Would that be a good way to, yeah, anyhow, a used agent. So both new agents, used agents.
Seasoned.
What? Seasoned, yes. Spicy, salty, all that kind of seasoning sometimes. But we're going to talk about getting your career on track, and there's some things we're going to spend more time on than others as we go through. But if you didn't know this, I'm going to just say it now. Most agents don't succeed. Right? Most agents who get the real estate license and join the board of realtors and the multiple listing service don't succeed. They don't make a lot of money. About a third will drop out by the time it comes to renew their license. I've seen projections that are much higher than that. But if you looked at the universe of real estate agents, what you're going to find, maybe you've already heard of something called the 80-20 rule. Right, the 80-20 rule was something called, it's called Pareto's principle. He was an Italian economist, and he had noticed that 20% of the people in Italy had 80% of the wealth. He had a garden. He noticed that 20% of his pea pods produced 80% of the peas. So he started looking for this ratio and found it, just about everywhere. In fact, the 80-20 ratio is accurate about 80% of the time. Right? Did you know that? 20% of the time it's not. Anyhow, there's a joke there, but buried kind of deep. So what I'm saying is that about 80% of the real estate agents split around 20% of the money. Actually, the statistics are higher than that. It's closer to 90-10 than 80-20, but let's just go with 80-20. That also means that 20% of the real estate agents earn 80% of the money. Right, the bulk of the business is done by a relatively small number of agents. Why is this true? Right? Why is this true? Now, I've been doing this for a really long time. Some people would think too long. I've heard that, but a long time. And many people that get into real estate have no idea what they're getting themselves into. And what I mean by that is they don't understand that when their real estate license says salesperson, it actually means that you're a salesperson, right? For some reason, that thought is lost on people. And then there's and I'm not going to go through Maslow's hierarchy of, mastery, but there's different stages that we go through when we do something new, from being an unconscious incompetent, which means we don't even know what we don't know, to a conscious incompetent. That's where we know what we don't know, but we still don't know enough to do anything. To a conscious competent, that's where we know, what we need to know, but we have to really focus on doing it in order to. And then the unconscious incompetent is the person who they've done it so many times, it just happens. Right? A lot of times the dialogues and the scripts and the things that I say, I've said before, and I've said again, and I've said again, and I'm not actually involved in thinking when I'm responding sometimes, because I've done the response so many times. Right? You understand, if you think about a kid learning to tie their shoes, at first they don't even know which foot to put it on. Right? They're an unconscious incompetent. They want to try to tie the shoes themselves, but they can't do it. They're a conscious incompetent. You see where I'm going, to where most of us, I think, can tie our shoes without thinking about it. Now, the reason I mention that is going through those different stages is very painful. And many people that get started in real estate came from other careers where they knew what they were doing. People would ask you, how do I do this? You would be explaining to them. Now the tables are turned and you don't know how to do stuff, right? And a lot of people, rather than getting through that, just give up. Many people think it's easy. Right? I have people that say, well, I bought and sold real estate as an investor, and it doesn't seem like it's that much work to be a I got my license, I want to do it. And they're like, what is RPR? What is zip forms? What is all the, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Right? It's simple. This is a good line. The real estate business is simple, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. right? Many things are simple, but not necessarily easy. Many people don't realize it's a sales job. What that means is that you need to talk to people and have conversations about real estate. And if you don't do that, you're not going to get paid. Right? If the more you talk to people, the more you're going to get paid. If you talk to some people, you'll get paid some. If you talk to a lot of people, you'll get paid a lot. And one of the things, some of the people that are on my team and we've had these discussions, and I'm not going to name the names of the agents, but we've had transactions with very well-known agents, big producers. You've seen their signs. I've seen them being asked to speak at board meetings and things like that, famous real estate agents, and they're terrible at the business. They're horrible. Their contracts are crazy. They don't seem to know what they're doing in escrow. It's just a disaster. But they sell lots of homes. How is that possible? How can you be bad at it and yet make so much money? And the answer is they're really good at the sales part. Right? They're not good at filling out the contract. They're not good at reading disclosures. They're not good at timelines. They're not good at organizing. They're not good at any of that. But boy, are they good at talking to people. And they make lots of money. And then there are agents that have learned how to do everything. Right? They could teach a class on how to use ZipForm's mobile app. But they don't have any real people they don't really have anybody to do it with, right? So 20% of your success is going to come from learning all of the technical issues, but 80% of your success is going to come from learning how to talk to people. All right, you understand? So the focus, we'll see how this goes. So why do people not make it? I've had a lot of time to think about this. Right? I got my broker's license back in 19, and I've literally over the years helped train, coached, mentored thousands of real estate agents. So I've seen some people do very, very well that I was surprised at how well they did. They didn't look good, they're colorblind, trick knee, all of that stuff, speech impediment, and they sell lots of homes, right? And other people that look great, sound good, look good, they've got goals and all that, they don't do anything, right? And so why does one group do well and the other groups not do well? And the first thing is you have to have a willingness and ability to talk to people. Now, if you're one of those people that naturally talks to people when you're in the line at a store or whatever, if you're a natural at this will be a lot easier for you. And we're going to talk about the different ways of focusing your business, but you have to be able to talk to people. You have to be willing to talk to people. You have to be willing to initiate conversations with people, and you have to have some idea of what you're going to say. You also have to commit. One of the reasons that people drop out of real estate is it's too easy to get into. Well, those of you that recently got your license are probably know it was really, really hard. No, it's easy to get into real estate. My father was an orthopedic physician, an orthopedic doctor, and one year he was actually upset with me because I made more money selling real estate than he did as a doctor, which he thought was unfair, and I get his point. I understand why that might be unfair because he had to go to school for a really long time, right, in order to be a doctor. But you understand, people don't go to medical school and then say, well, I'll try it for 6 months. I don't really know if I want to hang around sick people and hurt people. I hear they complain all the time. So I got my medical license, but I'll give it 6 months and see how it goes. People don't do that, right? They don't go to law school to give 6 months. If you spend that much time, you're going to be a doctor, right? So people generally don't commit to it because how many of you know people that were in real estate that are no longer in real estate? Anybody know anybody like that? Ever met anybody? A used up ex-real estate agent, anybody? I've met a lot of them. By the way, most people know somebody who's like that. So there's no particular stigma, right? You understand, they don't make you wear something to identify you as a failed real estate agent. You just say, oh, I decided it didn't work out for me, right? It's like I stopped, right? It's also optional. Freedom is a gift not always wisely used. Welcome to the world of an independent contractor. Nobody's watching you. Nobody's on you. Unless, you have a spouse or something. But anyhow. And then you have to go through these different stages, right? Now, the inertia stage is where most of us begin. And by the way, this is why you don't want to stop, right? Because think of it like a railroad car sitting on a track. And your job is to push it down the track. It takes a lot of push to make it move because it's just sitting there. But once it starts to move, it doesn't take as much push to keep it moving. The faster it moves, the less push you need to make it move. And at a certain point, you can sit on the car and just ride it because you've got momentum. Does everybody understand that's the real estate business? You have to go from inertia into movement to get acceleration, and then you get to a point where people call you. I can remember when it first happened, it was a long time ago. So this guy calls me, and he says, "Hi, Mike, you remember us? You sold us a home, 4 years ago." And I was like, "Yeah, how's it going?" He says, "Great, we want to sell it and buy something else. When can you come over and put our home on the market?" Oh, it's happening, right? I'm getting repeat and referral business. But you understand, it's hard to get through the initial stages. So my suggestion is you should do everything at the beginning, even if there are things you don't like to do. I've had people say, "Well, I don't like calling people," but they were good at it and found it wasn't as bad. I've had people say, "I don't like door knocking," but you don't have to do everything. But I'm just saying, if you want to make a lot of money, you might want to try to do everything, right? If you have the time. Earl Nightingale wrote that the learning to do the things unsuccessful people don't like to do is the common denominator of success. Right, and there's a upside to the fact that most real estate agents aren't going to even try, right? There's an upside because a lot of them aren't even trying. You should try to make a goal to do something in the next 30 days. List a house, get a buyer to sign an agreement, write up a purchase contract, do something. And a lot of this has to do with being in the right group where you have training and you have support and you have the right tools and systems. We may talk a little bit about that. But also you need to remember you're an independent contractor, and I'm going to touch on teams in a minute. But agents always, this is a common question. So if I get my license and I join, your group, who's going to give me the leads? Right? Are you going to just assign listings to me and then I'll put put my name on them? Are you going to just give me buyers and tell me to go, show them homes? How does all that work? Now, when I get asked that question, I know I'm talking to somebody unclear on the concept, right? Because this is a sales job. And the job of a salesperson is to find clients. And yes, there's ways of buying leads and there's ways of automating it, but you understand that's the job, right? How many of you would like to earn $40,000 from the sale of a property? Well, what is it that you're doing that's worth that kind of money? It's not showing the homes. It's not unlocking the key. It's not data entry. It's generating the client-based business. So why real estate is a good question. If I was talking to somebody about selling their home, I would want to know, first question, why are you thinking of selling your home at this time? If somebody was interested in buying a home, my question would be, why are you thinking of buying a home at this time? If I'm talking to a real estate agent, I might ask, why are you thinking of getting into real estate at this time? Because motivation is pretty much everything. If you list a house, but the seller is not motivated to sell, it probably isn't going to work. Buyers that aren't motivated to buy probably aren't going to buy. We're not in the kind of market where it's that easy. And real estate agents who don't have a strong motive to be a real estate agent, generally do not do anything. It's just been my perspective. So we have big time agents. I've worked with agents that were earning $1 million a year in commissions. I worked with teams. I helped coach a team that was doing over $500,000 a year. Do you understand it's possible? Let me just, and I'm in the Silicon Valley area, and I know that not all of you are in Silicon Valley, so the dollar amounts will vary, but $1 million, by the way, is considered inexpensive in Silicon Valley. At a 2.5% side, that's $25,000. if you did 12 transactions, you would earn $300,000, right? That's not bad, right? So you can do this big time, you can do this full time. Big time agents have teams, they're recruiting people, they have people that are buying in Tahoe, they get a team member in Tahoe, they have somebody in Texas, they get somebody in Texas on their team. There are dual career people, which are people that just want to do this as a part-time basis, but they might actually want to go full-time, and then there's the hobbyist. Now, the reason I have this slide is it's okay to be a hobbyist, right? The MLS a year or two ago said that over 60% of the people that were in the MLS had not closed a transaction in 12 months. 60% hadn't done anything in 12 months. So why do they have a real estate license? Well, our commissions are high, and they're expecting every year or two, every 2 or 3 years, maybe they'll sell a house. And that means that it's, enough money to be worth joining the board of realtors and all that kind of stuff. But you need to sort of decide what would this do for you? Because if there isn't enough motivation, there won't be enough effort. And there isn't enough effort, there won't be enough results. So do you have goals? Right now, I was going to do a poll, but I just didn't have. I see a bunch of chats. I hope. Let me just see. Why is it? There we go. People are talking. Okay, that's not good. So people are saying they're not leaving. I'm not asking anybody to leave. I'm just pasting in the two handouts again in case that's in the chat. What I'm saying is that you have to decide whether or not what kind of agent you're going to be. Right? Are you going to be a big-time agent, a small-time agent? What is your goal? And it would be good to have a goal. How many of you, and we can do a hand raise, see if you guys are I know you've learned how to use the chat. We can do a hand raise. How many of you actually have written goals? Right? Where you've, written them down somewhere and you could show them to people. Anybody, some people, I'm seeing some hands. Very good. I'm seeing lots of hands. All right. So, and we're going to talk about that process. The reality is that people with goals generally do better than people without. It's just sort of a thing. So this is something that you can use. I've also made a spreadsheet for those of you who have, like spreadsheets. I know some of you don't, but this is just an example of what it might look like. And for those of you that love spreadsheets, I included a spreadsheet in the handouts. And I just want to, this is something, so I have a bit of an analytical style. I guess we could say that. And so this is a spreadsheet that I've modified over the years. And I'm going to give you an example about how to fill it out. And then we'll talk about how to translate that into some sort of a meaningful goal. Now, to start with, let's start with the desired income. Now, we're starting right now with a gross number. And if I were better at spreadsheets, I would be able to start with a net number, but that's down here. This is the best I got. So in my example, I use $300,000 as a gross number. Now you just need to understand that the company gets something, right? Their fees and expenses, all that sort of stuff. And you can sort of play with the numbers, but it gives you a sense as to what you need to do. So let's just, for now, I hope everybody likes $300,000. I hope that's, good enough for us to use as an example. I know for some of you, let's just see. So that's 300,000. Why not? Now, does the company you work for have a cap? When I was at Keller Williams, the cap varied by office because they're brick and mortar, old school, and have expenses. But it was oftentimes $32,000, $35,000. It depended. And what that would mean is that at a certain point, you don't have to pay the company any more money. Now, I've also, many of you know, have been at Century 21, and for that matter, many of the Coldwell Bankers and Compasses, and I know that it could vary a little bit by agent and office, but in Taro's, and many of them don't have a cap. In other words, your commission split is your split. It goes up to a certain point, but you always give money to the company. Now, at EXP, the cap is only $16,000, right? Now, if you were on my production team, which some of you are, your cap is only $8,000. Right now, what that means is whatever number we write in here, for example, if you're at a company that doesn't have a cap, you would leave it blank. Because that means whatever your split is, you're going to pay forever, right? If you're a solo agent with EXP at 16,000 on my production team, it's only 8,000. Let's just do 16,000. Why not? Now, one of the things that you should ask yourself is, are you going to be a listing agent or are you going to be a buyer's agent or a little bit of both? Now, at the initial beginning of your business, it's easier to work with buyers. It's easier for new people to work with buyers. And the reason it's easier to work with buyers is because buyers buy a tangible thing called a house. And even if you're incompetent, even if you don't know how to run the MLS, so they have to find the listings themselves, and you have trouble finding out how to show them, and you can't open the lockbox very easily because you don't do it very often, and they stand around and watch you for 20 minutes struggling to get into the house. And once you finally get the door open, you trip and fall as you walk in, and you're bleeding from your nose on the floor. Right, you understand? You're just totally incompetent. However, when they look around, if that's the house they like, you probably still have a deal, right? You'll still have a deal, right? Because they'll just step over your bleeding body and go check out the primary bedroom. And if they like it, they're going to let you write up the offer. Why not? Right? Because they're not buying you, they're buying a house. Now, sellers are a little bit different. Because when a seller lists their home with you, what the seller is getting is your promise to provide a service at some time in the future. That's all they're going to get. Right? You understand why they're much more likely to want to know, well, have you ever done this before? Right? But I started with this, I put down that as a goal, as a long-term goal, you might want 60% of your business to come from listings and 40% to come from buyers. If you have listings, you will get buyers, right? You don't have to buy them, right? You don't have to trade for them. If you have them, you will get buyers. So you might say, well, I'm no good at listings. I don't want to get listings. So you can change the percentage. Right now, we're sticking with my 60-40. There's an old saying in real estate, you have to list to last in real estate. So if we wanted $300,000, that would mean 60% is 180 for the sellers, 40% is 120 for the buyers. What is your average listing price taken? Right? And what is your average sales price? Now, those could be different numbers. Right? In my example, my listings and my sales prices are, I don't know, and many of you don't have enough volume to really be able to calculate the differential between your listing and your selling signs, right? I'm just guessing. So I just put in $1 million because we're doing cheap houses. Cheap, right? In Santa Clara County, right? By the way, the median price, it's ridiculous, right? So what is your average commission? Now I put in 2.5%. Now, if you say, well, I don't usually charge 2.5% when I list it, I only do 1%. If I work with a buyer, I give them some money back. Whatever, right? No judgment. I'm doing that right now on a transaction, but I'm still making $40,000. So whatever that deal is, you put it in there. You need to estimate what your likely commission percentage is going to be. If you're doing it just 2.5, that would be $25,000 on each side. Now, if you're at EXP, and most companies, when you're doing your first few transactions, you're on a team and you have a mentor who's going to help you so you don't have to learn everything. but the baseline commission plan at EXP is 80% to an agent, 20% to EXP, but it caps at 16,000. Now, what that would mean is if you were on an 80-20 split, that the company dollars, this is line 14, right? The company dollars would be 5,000. Now, just so you get an idea, if you're on my production team and you have an $8,000 cap, 2 transactions you've capped. 2. Because you only need 8 to cap, and each one is producing $5,000. If you're at 16,000, a full cap, because you're a solo agent, you're talking about 3 and a little change, and you've capped, right? That's at $1 million. If you were to sell a $2 million house, you get the idea. That cap of 16,000 or even 8 is a very low number. So that gives us how many units are we going to need to reach that gross? 7 listings, 5 buyers. Now, what percent actually close? Now, right now, I would say if it was a listing, about 90% of our listings are closing. All right. There's a time, why is it such a high percentage? Because we have more non-contingent offers. You might be saying, well, I'm not sure 90%, but whatever. We could be conservative and put in a different number, but I'm just saying mostly it's higher. Buyer sides sometimes are a little more problematic if the buyer has to have, they have a loan contingency and there's appraisal and there's things like that. But I would still, because of the non-contingencies, let's just say 80% of the contracts I open close if they're a buyer, and 90% of the listings that are in contract actually sell. Right? You understand, we're in a market where over 90% of the listings are selling. So that would mean I would need 8 listings, right? Because I need to close 7 listings, but if I'm only getting, if 9 out of 10 are closing, I'm going to need 8 to make sure I have 7. If I want to close 5 buyers and I know there's a 20% dropout, I'm going to need 6 buyers in order to close 5. Right? And again, one of the values of looking at your numbers is, one, it can tell us where you need to work, what you need to work on, right? Because let's say your percentage isn't very good. Well, we could talk about why. So where does that put us? 8 listings, 6 buyers. Or we need slightly less than 1 listing a month and 1 buyer a month. 1/2 of a buyer a month. So if you understand, 6 buyers in a year would reach that number, and 8 listings in a year. Now, some of you are switching the numbers around because you're more buyer oriented, but it still works out the same. Now we come to the question of, if you went on a listing appointment, and you had 4 of them, or you had 4 appointments with buyers, what percentage of them are actually going to list with you or buy from you? What does that percentage look like? Now, my percentage is higher than this, but I've had practice. Your percentage might be lower than this, but if it is, we have to talk about why. So what I'm thinking is 3 out of 4 listing appointments list, 3 out of 4 buyer appointments buy. Again, all of those numbers, as you can see with the red marks, you could change. What that would mean, and just for some of you are thinking, well, I don't do that well. Let's just say 50% of your listings list with you, and 50% of the buyers you meet with buy. All right. So how many appointments do we need? If half of our listing appointments end up in a listing and 90% of those close, we would need 16 listing appointments, and we would need 12 buyer appointments a year in order to reach those numbers. So how many appointments do we need each month? About 2.5. How about this? If you made a goal to get an appointment, buyer, seller, or investor, every week, a goal to get an appointment with a buyer or a seller or an investor every week, and you did that for 48 weeks, that would be, wow, 48 appointments. We're way, you understand, way ahead in the numbers. One appointment a week. So we've now come to the metrics, right? Rather than focusing on how many dollars am I making, right? Because you don't really have control over that, right? I'm in contract on both a $3.9 million property right now and an $850,000 property right now, right? Both, right? I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying, it fluctuates. So rather than focusing on how many dollars am I going to get, what we can have control over is how many appointments are we going to have. Right? And I've known committed agents who, when they start calling the people, their goal is to keep doing it until they get the appointment. Right? Now, so you understand, those aren't a lot of appointments. When I was at another company, I was required to have at least one appointment a day. Right? This is a real estate thing. It was recruiting, but at least one a day. It was a requirement. If you didn't have at least one a day, they were on you, right? One a week. Come on, guys. You could handle one appointment a week. And by the way, if you don't have a lot of appointments, you're never going to get good at it. You understand, if every other year you sell a house, you're never going to get good at selling houses because you're just not doing it enough. Now we have operating expenses. And because I'm not great, I'm not the best. I thought I typed this in. I may have done that, but this may not be exact. Anyhow, what I'm saying is my spreadsheet works yearly back to monthly, not the other way around. And yeah, I know I had to pick one, and I know where the red line. But anyhow. So how much do you pay in the Board of Realtors? Now, $675 is what I paid last year, but that doesn't include about $25 a month, which is the Supra Key, all of that. Let's just say that in a typical year, I'm paying the Association of Realtors about $1,000. How much do you pay the Multiple Listing Service? Our MLS gives us a huge break if we pay them in an annual fee. You save like $230 or something like that, but that's $845. Notice it's calculating when we put that in what our monthly amount is. How are you going to buy any equipment? Now, one of the classes that I plan on doing is what are the different programs that I use to make real estate simpler and easier? And by the way, most of them don't cost anything. But one of the things you might need is a computer. It would be better to have a laptop. And I understand that if you're a particular age, you're going to show me your phone and you're going to say, this is my computer. All right. Let's see you modify your web page using it. Not easy to do. And filling out contracts. Now, I signed a form. I wrote the counter offer on the $3.9 million property Sunday night. And I did it using the mobile version of the zip forms. But that was a simple counteroffer, and I can talk into it and it'll type it, but you might need to actually have, like a laptop, something you can carry with you. If you haven't invested in a computer, people are always saying, should I get a Macintosh? Should I get a PC? A Chromebook? All of the technology that we use is cloud-based. If you had a Linux computer, and if you don't know what that is, you're forgiven. But if you could still access the internet, right? So my Chromebook, which doesn't cost very much, it doesn't weigh very much, I take with me. Do you have a computer that you can use? Again, the Chromebook, few $100, it'll access the internet, you can do everything. Is there any equipment that you're going to need? I put in 90, I don't know how I came up with that, but I might have done it the other way around, but you get the idea. Right? Now, if you're saying, well, I don't plan on I don't plan on doing anything, then put in 0. Do you have office fees? Now, the company that I work with, EXP, has an $85 a month. That goes to training, it goes to technology, it goes to all the stuff. There are no other monthly fees. There are no other fees per month. No other annual fees, no other monthly fees. There's no annual E&O fee. There's no extra. I mean, it's just $85 a month. Now, some of you, because I can recognize your names, you're at companies that charge. I hired a guy recently. I had a transaction with him, and he was at Intero. And he was paying $300 a month at Intero, paying $300 a month. And his commission split wasn't very good. And in fact, in the last 3 transactions, he'd given Intero over about $50,000. Now, at EXP, you understand the cap is 16. And the monthly fees are only 85. But whatever that number is for you, put it in. Do you have office rent? Do you have to pay a desk fee? Are you renting space? Right? Most of us don't do that. I actually am, but because I'm doing other things. But mine isn't very expensive. Let's talk about lead generation. Do you have a budget for marketing? Are you willing to invest $50 a month? $100 a month, right? You understand if you get a listing, somebody's going to have to pay the photographer, you're going to make flyers. Now, we have systems for doing all that, but you might need to print them. You understand, are you willing, if you're farming geographically, that requires postage and printing, do you have a budget? Right? What amount of money would you be willing to invest in real estate? Now, I put in auto insurance. If you don't like that, change it to something else. I'm sure all of you have upgraded your auto insurance, haven't you? Because you're now doing sales. Do you do a certain amount every month in buying technology? You know, all those different programs that are $10 and $15 and $20. What do they all add up to be? Right? And is this one? So let me just see. Some of them I may have done the other way around. So let's say I'm spending $50 a month. Did I do this right? Yeah, I'm doing $50 a month in technology. You see, there's a bump. If you're saying I didn't change my auto insurance at all, you know, because my broker never asked to see it, right? So I never bothered to do it. Do you hire anybody, right? So some of these, I guess, I go annual. I don't know. You're going to have to figure it out. But you understand, $479 a month. By the way, a typical real estate agent often spends $500 a month. When you take annual fees and things like that and amortize it on a monthly basis, I'm just saying. So that gives us $5,745. Notice the spreadsheet has already put it in here, which means that if I gross 300,000, which is going to take 12 transactions, right? You understand? 12 transactions, that's it. At 1 million and a 2.5% side, 1 a month. That's all we ask. It's just one a month, right? That's all we ask. If I had 1 transaction a month and I gross $300,000, because of the split that I'm on and the cap, I would make $278,000. Why would I make that much money? Because the split caps at 16 and my expenses are under 6,000. So my total expenditures, well, you get the idea, is less than 22,000. And then we're also having a comment about taxes and things like that. 30, yes, you should. 30 to 50%, you might want to put aside for taxes. Right? We're not doing that. I may have a tax person talk. And assuming you're working a 40-hour work week, right, which you could change this. But anyhow, how did I come up with that? So this, or maybe it's in here. But anyhow, I believe that works out. I did the math. That would be, it automatically calculates your dollars per hour, assuming, now I know how I did it, because it's a hidden cell. So you'd be making $139 an hour if you worked a 40-hour work week under this system. Is everybody with me? Now, if you're like, I hate spreadsheets and I don't like all of this stuff, and first of all, by the way, you might not be a good fit for commercial real estate if you don't like what I just did, right? I'm just saying, right? Because in commercial real estate, we seem to do stuff like this a lot more. But if you don't like it, then you might just say to yourself, how about one a month? How about this? One a month. Right? How about that? Just as a starting goal. Now, if you're saying I'm already doing one a month, then make it 2. If you're doing 2, make it 3, right? This doesn't have to be complicated, but you need to have an understanding as to how you get paid and what the expenses are and all of that stuff. All right. Wasn't that special? All right. Now, this is a similar little form which you could fill out on your own using a calculator and that sort of stuff. Now, what you might want to do once you've thought about this is to just say, I have a goal, and my goal is I want to make X amount of money. I want to take so many listings next year, and this is important to me. I plan on working so many hours a week, which at least 65%, I've changed that over time, is what I would call hot time, and I'll explain what that means. I'm going to work X number of days a week and take so many weekends off a month. And I'm going to you ought to take vacations. If you have a family, you ought to, visit them, all of that. And you're going to need to prospect where there's hot and warm, and we'll take a look. Now, remember the 80-20 rule, right? If we made a list of everything that real estate agents do, everything they ought to do, that they should do, that they could do. And that's, by the way, a very long list. I've got something anyhow, I'll show it to you later. So we make a list of all of the activities that real estate agents have. And we make that list. On that list, 20% of the things that are on that list are going to produce 80% of your income. And 80% of the things that are on the list are going to produce 20% of your income. Now, that may sound like, convoluted. But what we're saying is, let's say I do 8 things and you do 2 things. The question is, who's ahead, me or you? And the answer is, it depends on which 2 you did and which 8 I did. This is the difference between being productive versus being busy. So the question is to identify how much of your time is spent doing your 20%. Now, this may seem like too many 80-20s, but 80% of your time, this would be a goal, is to do the 20% of the activities that produce most of the money. What would those be? Well, I have a list. Having conversations with people, having appointments with people, writing offers, negotiating transactions. I'm going to do a class because a lot of people don't seem to know what that means, right? Communicating with the listing agent, going through the comps, looking at the disclosures, coming up with a price and an offer, talking to the loan, all of that sort of stuff, right? So the hot time, and I know my previous slide said 65%. I'm just saying you guys are obviously an exceptional group and you'd like to make more money than anyone else. So if you spent 80% of your time focused on the 20% of because at the beginning, if you don't have escrows, right? Let's say you don't have escrows. So you're not doing any of that. If you don't have clients and you're not showing property and you don't have any listings, you're not doing any of that. So you probably have time to do these things, right? And what would be considered warmer, right, which are things that you're not directly communicating with people that could buy, sell, invest, or working on them actually buying, selling, or investing, but these are the kinds of things that we would want to do, that we could be doing, where we could be previewing homes and going to open houses, and we'd be attending meetings, and we would be, you get the idea. Right? So it's good to have a plan. It would be good to write down the plan, and it would be good to have deadlines. I'm going to give you an example. Now, when I talk to people, I've been doing this for a while. I was the director of training for Century 21 for the Northern California region. I was a productivity coach and a certified trainer at Keller Williams for 7 years. I'm a mentor, a certified mentor, and I've been added to the EXP training list, by the way. I'm going to be doing classes for EXP. And one of the things that I've noticed is that since the 1980s, real estate agent training hasn't really changed very much. Don't ask how I know what they were doing in the 1980s. Just trust me, I know what they were doing in the 1980s. And what I hear is exactly the same thing. Cold calling, door knocking, for sale by owners and expireds. And yes, they were on my list, but that was just a sample list. When I'm coaching people, we usually use a different list, right? But anyhow. So they want you to do the same things that they wanted you to do back in those days, right? Back in the 1980s. Now, what I believe is that there are many paths to the top of the mountain. And one of the things that you ought to do is to look up, Tony Robbins has one, there's something called the DISC, D-I-S-C. And you might want to take a DISC assessment. If you're in my coaching program, share it with me. But because there isn't a right or a wrong answer. And so what we have is this quadrant, and the people that are above the quadrant, the D's and the I's, are the kind of people that want to go get the business themselves. They want to be proactive. Now the D's, the dominant people, don't really care if it's they don't care if it's face to face. Right? So for example, somebody that scores in a high D is generally good at cold calling. I have one of those that I recruited from a commercial real estate company, Marcus and Millichap, and this agent will make 100 phone calls in a day. 1 week she called 800 people. Really good at it, right? Really good at it. And when she started calling residential properties, they were not as happy to hear from her as commercial. And this is a high D. She said to me, there's a lot more rejection calling these people. I'll have to get over that. You understand? That's a high D, a driver. I'll just have to get over that, right? Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Now a high I, those people have been suffering a little bit because, and the S's, because the high I would like to go get the business, but they want it to be face to face. They would rather door knock than call people on the phone. They would rather do that because at least, even though it's cold, when the door opens, they're face to face and talking to people, and that's their thing. They're good at face to face, right? They're good at face to face. Now, they're good at door knocking. They're good at networking events. For a high I to tell them, well, your job is to go to this event and meet people and chat with people and get their contact information and guest them. This is not work for a high I. They would go anyhow, right? If there were hors d'oeuvres and things like that. Now, again, because of COVID and things like that, we haven't been doing as much, but that may change. Below the line, these are the groups of people that want the business to come to them. The S wants it to be relationship oriented. That means face to face. But they would like people to come to them. Open houses. Booth type things, right? They're good at that. They're friendly. They smile. They chat with people. If somebody walks up, they're on it, right? But they don't want to go interrupt people, right? The I will interrupt people. The I will hear people talking and walk over, and pretty soon they'll be talking, right? The C, and the C is sometimes an overlooked style in that we think of salespeople that do a lot of business as being, the high I type, but the C is the analytical style. Now, they're very good at internet lead generation. I believe next week I'm having my guys from Be Known University do another class on internet lead generation and the systems. We've got videos on my website on using KV Core, but the idea is we're going to create the squeeze page, which is a results page, and then we're going to have a landing page, and the landing page will move people to the squeeze page, and the squeeze page will get people to give up their contact information to get the results, and then we're going to advertise these properties to get the people to go to the landing page, and then there's going to be the hashtag, because once somebody fills out the form, they're going to be on an automated campaign. You understand, the analyzers love this stuff as much as they love anything. Right, an analyzer, one of those people is somebody who is, it's 2 a.m. and they're writing things on the computer, right, in a windowless dark room with nothing but the laptop light on. And happy isn't always a word attributed to these people, but they're happy. They would rather do that than knock on doors. And I have some of these people who are terrible at networking events. They're just not any good at talking to people, right? They're really not. Right? But they're good. Internet lead generation is very analytical, right? And it involves all these different campaigns and steps. And somebody's admitting they studied engineering. Have you ever heard what's the difference between a engineer that's introverted and extroverted? I may have told this joke months ago, but I'm going to do it again. Do you know how you can tell if an engineer is introverted versus extroverted? If you're talking to the engineer and they're looking at their shoes when they talk to you, they're an introvert. If you're talking to the engineer and they're looking at your shoes when they talk to you, they're an extrovert. Now, in our area, which of these groups do you think is the biggest? You know, and when they do studies, there are more people that are in the C and the S than in the D and the I. So engineers, being analytical, I by the way, score high in the analytical style. The first time I ever took that assessment, by the way, I scored as a high I and I scored as a high C, which are somewhat schizophrenic, right? But anyhow. So what I'm saying is, when you don't buy that there's only one way to do the business. Don't accept that if you don't door knock and cold call people, you can't make any money. One of the sessions that is coming up in the series that I'm doing is going to be called Only Amateurs Cold Call. That's what I'm going to call it. Only Amateurs Cold Call. But let's talk about, so the reason I went through those different styles is because probably one has clicked with you already. When I went through the 4 different styles, I'll bet there's one that sounded better to you, right? So what I'm saying is that rather than doing things that don't fit your style, we ought to make a list of things you could do that do fit your style. So one goal, this is sort of related to what I did. I'm going to close so many transactions in the next 12 months, and so many are going to be sellers and so many that are going to be buyers. Now, if we're going to, let's say we want 5, I forget my number, 11 sellers, 8 sellers, whatever the number is. Let's say I want 8 listing transactions. What we want to do with these 5, the blank spaces, is what we're going to want to do is to list maximum of 5. What will we do in order to get listings? Like now, in the other sessions when I'm coaching people, we could go through, because again, depending upon your style, your list would be different. But sphere of influence would be part of the list. It could be door knocking. It could be expireds. It could be for sale by owners. It could be circle prospecting. It could be working with vendors. It could be working with investors, right? It could be geographic farming. It could be a lot of things. But you need to have something, right? I'm going to do these maximum of 5 things. Doesn't have to be 5, but these are the things I'm going to do. Now, by the way, you want to start with a smaller number of projects. One of the companies that I work with, which was very big on coaching. In fact, I had a coach that I paid $1,000 a month to. Right, I paid my coach $1,000 a month, and my coach only coached people that coached people. Right, she coached real estate agent coaches, And so this group, they studied people really well. Let's just say that. And they had identified a group of agents that had earned over $1 million in commissions. And when they studied the million plus commissioned agents, they found that on average, those agents had 12 different things they were doing in order to generate business. 12. That was the average number for the people doing $1 million in commissions. But 80% of their volume came from 3. So the typical agent doing over $1 million in commissions may be doing 12 things, but most of the money comes from 3 things they're doing. So you understand, if you're getting started with this, 3 is enough to get started with. Right, and then once you're good at one, and then the other, and then the third, then we could talk about a 4th and the 5th. And some of these will overlap. For example, open houses would be a way to meet buyers and sellers. Your sphere of influence would be a way to meet buyers and sellers. There are a lot of things you could do that you could be meeting buyers or sellers, but how many buyer transactions do you want to do, and what is the plan to find buyers? The third thing that we need to work on is the product. And we don't sell houses. Some of you have heard me use this line. I actually say this to clients. Right? I tell them, I'm going to tell you the truth that, most real estate agents aren't going to tell you, but real estate agents don't actually sell houses. Did you know that? We don't sell houses. Right? Houses sell houses. Homeowners sell houses. Home buyers buy houses. That's not what we do. We do not sell houses. The seller sells the house. What do we sell? We sell a product. And that product is us. And what that really means is our product are a package of services that we have for a buyer and we have for a seller. If I were to say to you, all right, I'm a seller, give me... I've actually had a client do this not that long ago. He was interviewing 6 people. He said, give me your presentation. I've had people say, tell me, reasons. Why should I hire you? Are you in a position right now where you could explain to somebody what your package of services is if they're thinking about buying and how that's going to save them money and help them get the right house? Or if they're selling, how your package of services is going to help them get more money in less time and with less hassle. And if they're an investor, how your package of services for an investor is going to help them get the best return on their investment. You understand? If you're like, well, I don't even have a list of those things that I would do, let alone am I any good at it. Well, that we need to work on the product. So do you have a buyer consultation? Right? Do you have a seller one, a listing presentation, I think it's called? Do you study the real estate market? Do you know what happened to interest rates last week? Do you know are prices going up? Are they going down? Is the market getting softer? Is the inventory rising? What's happening? Do you preview homes? Do you know what's going on in the market? Can you talk intelligently of what a 4.2 would look like in that area? Right? Do you know? Right, and if the answer is I don't know how to do any of this stuff, well, that's part of the problem. You need to be a better you, right? Which means what I'm really saying here is that you need a list of services you're going to give to buyers and to sellers, and you need to be able to explain it to them as to what's in it to them, and you need to know enough about what you're doing so that you're a productive agent. So these are just some examples of things that you could write in. I'm going to contact somebody. I'm going to whatever, right? I've included vendors and things like that. There's a couple of more slides. I'm just going to wrap this up a little bit quickly. So if you're interested in working with my group, right, I have a document where which I share with agents. They don't always read them, but it explains all the different kinds of training and things like that. For those of you that like visual stuff, this is my modules, which we're going to be going through on a somewhat regular basis. By the way, if you're not in my coaching program, not part of my EXP team, then many of these aren't going to be available. like the ones that are focused on specific ways of generating business today. But to give you an idea of what this looks like, it's the list of all the things that real estate agents need to do. Like let's just forget that part. But if we were to go down to basic training, business development, how many? I have 47 different things, from the sphere of influence to the vendor database. I haven't fleshed that out yet. Working with sellers, working with buyers, working with investors, social media, internet lead generation. You understand that doesn't include contracts and disclosures, compliance issues. There's a lot, I guess, is what my point is, right? There's a lot of stuff, right? And so what you need, we need to find those things that you're going to do to build your business, right? So your sphere of influence, you should be talking to the people you already know, family, friends, coworkers. It's going to be easier when we can do things in person. It is still true that face-to-face is, even masked, is maybe a little bit better. That one-on-one meetings, even if they're by Zoom, is better than the phone where you can see people. Events and seminars, that's a big thing for me. A week from tomorrow, I'm doing a home buying seminar with Cooperative Credit Union, which is in Contra Costa County and Alameda County. If you're in my coaching group or on my team, I'll help you get those kind of those kind of events yourself. Phone calls, handwritten notes are sort of in the middle. The things at the bottom will produce leads, but the impact is higher if we have some sort of a connection. So I'll just do a couple minutes. We'll be done. Just give me a couple minutes. I'm almost done with this. 40% of the time when people are buying and selling real estate, I really want to go through. I'm not going to go through all of this. I'll cover some of the rest. These are bonus slides. But 40% of the time when people are buying, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to wind this up. We know that about 40%, and if you still, Mary, did you want to say something, or was that from when I was asking before about the hand? If you wish to speak, you may do so. Otherwise, I'm assuming you were just waving at me. All right, that's fine. So 40% of the real estate transactions are through sphere of influence. How do we know that? Because the Association of Realtors asks people, right? They ask people, how did you find your agent? And 40% of the time they said family, friend, coworker, or somebody like that. Why do you think most teams want to hire new agents? See, I have people all the time that say, well, I'm going to join a team. Oh, really? Why are you joining the team? Now, I do have a team, but my team's different, right? But anyhow, why are you joining the team? And by the way, let me just say there are a lot of great teams, and I'm not disparaging all of them, and this may not be the team that you're talking to. But if I ask the agent, why do you want to join the team? It's an easy answer. They said they're going to give me leads. Okay, what kind of leads? Well, they were running Zillow ads for the last few years, and some of the people haven't bought. Okay, that's fine, right? You can try that. So you become a telemarketer, right? You're calling these older leads to see if you can get something. The conversion rate on that is not very good. But then the question is, so you want to join the team because you think they're going to give you leads, which they usually don't, because you think they're going to be available to help you, but usually they're not because they're busy selling real estate and they're not available to help you. The question is, why do you think the team wants you? And people say, well, why, I don't know, why not? And well, would it be, if I have a team, would it be easier for me if I hired an agent who already knows how to use zip forms? They already know how to use RPR. They already know how to fill out the contract and the disclosures and how to use the lockbox key. And they're not asking me questions like, what's a home warranty? And what do title companies do? And I don't, right? Why wouldn't the team want to hire somebody that's already experienced? Now, if you ask the team that, they're going to say, well, we don't want people with bad, they already got bad habits. That's BS. That's not why they're doing it. The reason they want new people is because you have a fresh sphere of influence. And so part of the deal usually on the team is they want you to turn over your database to them so that they can market it, they'll say, for you, but it's all going to be in the name of the team. They know that the used agent who knows how to do stuff has probably already talked to their sphere of influence, and if there was anybody there, they've already done it. But they want you because you've got a fresh one. And then they're going to market to you. And those of you that are on my team, and many of you online are on my team, you know I've never asked you to give me your database. So I can put it in my software so I can start marketing to them, right? I'm not going to ask you to do that. Do you really want to give up control over the database, right? That's really a question when it comes to joining the team. And by the way, what Zillow is doing, you could do that too. $50 a month. You could generate internet leads. We're going to be talking about that probably next week. All right. If you would like to know more, like how do I actually do all these things? And by the way, those of you that are interested, I actually have agents who sometimes send me their goals every week, and whether or not they reach them, and we talk about it and that sort of stuff. That's called coaching. And if you're interested in expanding your business, doing more, saving more money, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. But anyhow, that's all I got for today. Thank you guys for joining. Be safe out there. Next week we'll be doing something else. All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michael.